LS was joining the team, LS was trying to make the strongest roster possible. So the strongest roster possible, we were looking for mid laners that we could help, that would fit into that role to make like the strongest roster possible. We were having like Fudge and Blabber, and then we were trying to find this mid laner that was going to make the roster like really good. But instead, we found a really great top laner that would make us like a very competitive roster internationally. We found Summit. So our obvious inclination there is like, well, we can help Fudge play mid. Fudge will go through the early stages of the year and improve faster than tons of other people that we could get from mid anyway. So by the end of spring, we think Fudge is just going to be the best mid laner anyway. So we'll just get Summit. We'll have a super competitive international top laner, and then we'll just put Fudge mid and help him improve. And he'll accelerate faster than all the other alternatives.
And welcome back to the LCS. And our next matchup is Golden Guardians versus Cloud9. A quick word from Max Waldo on the move from the top lane to the mid lane for Fudge. Emily, I want you to get on this conversation, though. Are you bought in on this?
I actually think Fudge could end up doing really well in mid lane. And the reason is because from where he started in the lock-in tournament last year to even how he improved through that tournament and then the entirety of spring, that transformation was amazing. And I think one of the things he always said that he was paying attention to in like every single interview or every time we talked to him was matchups and like his wave management. And so now that he brings that to the mid lane, he has to learn different matchups. But I do think then the greatest test is how is he going to move in mid because it's a much shorter lane. But in terms of like matchup and wave management, I think he has what it takes.
Yeah, and as you can see here, the Summit lineup that Max Waldo was kind of talking about isn't
The whole
here.
reason for the move.
For the whole move, it's not here currently, but they are still getting important reps for Blabber and Fudge's mid-jungle synergy, as well as the fact that like this is not a fully Academy lineup. Like yes, Sven is on their kind of practice squad, but he's still a beast, you know? So like this is a pretty strong lineup to be going up against for Golden Guardians.
Yeah, and so I think that he can definitely improve to be one of the strongest mid laners in this league. To be the best, no.
Okay.
Like, for sure it's going to be, in my mind, Abadaga, Bjergsen. Those two players I don't see leaving top two.
Okay.
And then I would look towards the rest of the, I think Kaido is definitely going to be, I would say, starting off this split better. And I would say, of course, we'll have the same amount of resources put into him to develop as well.
I don't want to derail the conversation too much into just like a straight up, mid lane power, preseason power ranking. But you have more faith because of the player that Bjergsen once was, that he will get back there faster than maybe Fudge will showcase the same kind of growth that he had last year in the top lane, from lock-in all the way through Worlds, where many people were citing him as all of a sudden the best player on Cloud9.
I do think so.
Okay.
Remember, he's also very public when he was coaching, still playing the game more than the players that he was like criticizing on TSM content. So like for me, of course, it's different between being a active competitive player and someone who's just playing the role. Being a career mid laner, having been in that position as like a Power of Evil or Bjergsen, easily going to start stronger. The question is whether they're going to end stronger. I think they're going to end stronger.
It's a pretty safe bet to put your money behind Bjergsen, I think.
Yeah, usually. But there's also the jungle to consider. And Blabber, as an MVP multiple times himself as well, like that's a great pairing for a player who's pretty aggressive in Fudge, who really wants to make plays. Like Blabber's the same way. So I do think there are some stylistic similarities that should lend well for this mid-jungle combo.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he's going to be, him and Blabber are going to be working together a lot. I think he's going to force that mid lane to be incredibly volatile, which is a very different way of thinking of it than, a control point where then the jungler is feeding off of that. I think with them, it's going to be the opposite.
Okay.
So it's going to be a really interesting look for me with that mid-jungle duo.
Again, though, I think at the end of the day, I align with a lot of what you said, Mark, around like these are important reps for at least the few core members that will be seen in the regular season, even if they don't have the full lineup here in the lock-in tournament. All that said, their opponents today, Golden Guardians. And so I want to get your opinion here, Raz, on the Golden Guardians roster that will be stepping on stage. It is the Academy roster, so another one of those switch-ups with Tony Top, Iconic, Ryoma, Stixxay, Chime, all stepping out onto the Rift.
But a few of these players, if not all of them at this point, Iconic, Ryoma, Stixxay, and Chime have been on the LCS
Right,
stage.
Tony's the only one who hasn't.
Exactly. The only one who hasn't is just Tony Top, and he's looked good in Academy.
Okay.
So this is a team that has looked good. The only question is, sure, they're going to look good in an Academy setting. They're probably going to get pushed around a little bit in this tournament. and is actually, I'm interested to see because they're having a lot of games that they've been playing right now.
Yeah, and so I was gonna say, bringing up the lower third we have there, they're playing a lot of matches. They just got off of playing UCI in the Proving Grounds qualifier, so this roster is actually going to be playing pretty much like straight through the weekend into another best of 3 against Wildcard.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of reps for this lineup. I am very curious to see how they perform. I think in the BO3 that I did see them in, Iconic was performing quite well in my opinion. So.
It's pretty nice. You don't have to set up scrims if you just have game day every single day.
Competition every day. Well, if you had read Parth's 56-page manifesto, you would know you want to separate trying to win and trying to improve,
Okay.
James.
Well, that's why I'm not a
You
coach.
do, actually. I loved that point.
Okay. There you have it. Let's talk about a few more individuals. Darshan just is somebody who I am constantly impressed by. His level of motivation, his commitment to not only this game, but looking to return to compete at the absolute highest level.
Yes, and for me, he is the living example, in my opinion, of someone that, even though he's had the experience of playing in the LCS, has all the championships, the experience is there, but he's constantly improving and developing. He's always challenging himself to learn about the game in a different perspective. I've worked with him on Golden Guardians Academy, and I'm glad that he's now had the opportunity to play against LCS players and showcase how good he is right now. And showcase what the journey, or at least the fruitfulness of the journey, like where he's currently at.
All right, we're going to keep things moving right along. We're about to dive into game number 2 of the day, but throughout the day, keep a lookout for those eye-popping highlights and tweet us using the hashtag #RockatBigPlay. Casters, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dash. Welcome back, everybody. After a pretty one-sided game number 1, we're ready for our second dose of North American League of Legends here today. Cloud9 going up against Golden Guardians. We were talking the huge story for Cloud9 here. They've yeeted Perks back to EU. They have put the real superstar in mid lane, and it's time for the fudge factor.
It's all about the fudge factor. I'm so excited actually for this role, so I'll have to see how he will perform. I'm not going to base all of my assumptions for the year on lock-in though.
You're not?
No,
what?
I'm
How
not.
are you even a League of Legends fan?
Because in lock-in last year, like over the course of the year, it was insane how much Fudge improved, right? Fudge went from the reason they were losing in lock-in to the reason they were winning in summer and internationally. He was doing incredible.
I agree, 100%. I think that he looked really vulnerable, really weak in lock-in, and by the end of the year, I thought he was the best player on the team. The guy's ceiling has clearly been shown to be high, and we'll see if he can do it here in the mid lane. Bans are already starting off. Thresh, Twisted Fate, Karma, and Lee Sin all off the table.
Always love me a good lane swap. That's just a fun story to follow either way. You know, there's also a lot of ego that goes around with it. I absolutely loved following, Tyler 1's massive role swaps to every single lane and, what that entails and all the lane mains talking trash to each other about which is the hardest role and all of that. Let's get down to this pick and ban though, because some of the very common ones are still emerging here. Again, especially looking at LPL, LCK, where you draw a lot of the early data from because they started earlier. We're seeing all the same bans except for Olaf. That's one
the Blabber special.
is for sure Blabber. And this is one of the big questions we had when the announcement of LS joining Cloud9 came out, because Blabber and his champion pool are seemingly at head-to-head kind of headbutt status with LS, where he was a lot more scaling. Exactly. And Blabber, with Olaf being one of his best champions, still recognized by Golden Guardians here, deserves the ban, and we're not even going to have to dissect that conversation. Meanwhile, the Jinx, the Aphelios, the Caitlyn, these carries that can carry your team fights later on are just cream of the crop right now, and it's no surprise they're going to lock that one in for Sven.
These picks at the start are very, very reminiscent of the previous game. Remember that last game, it was a Xin Zhao first pick, going over to a Jinx on the red side there in their first rotation. Aphelios back there on the blue side in second rotation. Jinx, Xin, and Aphelios all picked up first 3 picks again here. So a similar read on the meta, it seems, from these teams.
Yeah, and Lulu was actually banned out in the previous game. This time it's up, so we're getting Lulu Jinx, this classic scaling pairing on that bot side. I'm really interested to see as well what kind of champions Fudge will bring out. Is he just going to play top lane champions mid? Is he actually going to be busting out control mages, which is more of, that kind of mid lane special? Things even along the lines of LeBlanc will be really interesting to see how much he has actually diversified his pool so far.
I love the Renekton hovers as well, because that's another allusion to some of the LS
Get some Gnar, some Renekton in there, first pick blind.
Regardless, one of the reasons that Jarvan has emerged back into the competitive scene has been the prevalence of what I was just talking about, where a lot of the carries are high damage carries but low mobility carries. And so when you're facing a bunch of mid laners that are control mages without dashes,
Victor,
and you're facing a bunch of and you're facing a bunch of carries in the bottom lane with the AD carries that are very similar. Jarvan goes a long way in trapping those carries, but you need to have some sort of combination with the champion. So Cloud9 lock in the first part here. We'll see about the bans as they come through, but whittling further down on some of the primary mid laners, as you're talking about Fudge recently swapping to mid lane, you're expected to have a smaller champion pool because you haven't had as much time. So whittling down on some of the more acute ones here. LeBlanc taken out as well.
Yeah, there definitely is some crossover between the two lanes, so I'm excited to see what kind of a look he's going to bring out. Is it going to be something more aggressive? Things like the Aurelia, things like, the Akshan, a new champion that could actually be brought out that, works really well both mid and top.
All right, so coming down to the line, what's going to be the follow-up? Another mid laner for Fudge? Or are you going to actually diversify a bit?
Oh, okay.
Another,
Vex.
This is perfect because for my money, as someone who does not main mid lane, I think Vex is extremely powerful and extremely easy to pick up.
Yeah, you're like, this is the autofill milk tree.
I'm ranting about it because, like, for me, it was just so easy to pick up. It's basically in the Annie pool for me, which is notorious, especially for some of these tier lists as well, as far as very easy but very high impact. And it has some similar things with big AoE CC. You get these giant fears off, except that Vex also has more mobility with the dash resets with your ultimates and some of the possibilities there. So I think the Vex, especially if you're going up against someone who just switched to mid lane, is another very good ban to throw out. Very popular right now as well, even among the super experienced mid laners.
And a really good dive buddy alongside the J4, and that's something that they were searching for. So Corki coming out here, will Fudge try to scale alongside this? Will he try to go aggressive? Victor, I think, is a really good matchup into this. You can actually outrange, poke away with a laser. It can force Corki into going towards Fleet instead of really going greedy runes for gold generation.
Yeah, I am a huge fan right now of both the Corki and the Victor. When they're matched up against each other, slight preference for me for actually the Victor side of it, but it does come down to the player and how you're playing around it. Again, Corki for Golden Guardians has slightly higher priority because they're facing the Jarvan. And so you have more value on your Valkyrie, but in a straight up 1v1, Victor, Fudge should feel comfortable if they're not influenced too much by the extra roams coming through. Again, Victor, Crown of the Shattered Queen, goes so nicely with this champion. You can have that extra defensive capability so you can scale, get so much benefit off of even getting assists early on to help him get the hex scores accelerated. And as long as you get a little bit of a piece of some of those takedowns, helps you get to that scaling even quicker. And they lock in the tank for the top lane, baby. This is the big difference in the team comps, Azale. Top lane difference. Camille for 1v1s for more split pushing, and Sion for Cloud9 going to bring huge front line to their very obvious 5-on-5.
Yeah, I mean, C9 is all scaling, all 5v5. Sion, Jinx, Lulu, Victor, all heavily scaling champions. The J4 is the only kind of real splash of early game, but has a lot of added value when you're against things like the Felios, who becomes very reliant on that flash. But yeah, Victor, so much value out of first strike. It's incredibly easy to outrange champions with the laser and poke with that to actually consistently get gold. It really does force Corki away from it because you just outrange him. He can't really consistently hit the Foss bombs on you in lane. So very often in this matchup, Corki will have to go Fleet instead because you're just not getting enough income from that first strike for it to be worthwhile.
Plus, I really like having that early splash that you're talking about on a scaling team comp be in the jungler so that he can try to facilitate all of those lanes, being able to safely move forward and scale up and get to that point where it's just GG on champion select. But we are on into the draft now. We've got Golden Guardians hanging out here in the bottom lane. Everybody except for Iconic that is still back in the base. Everybody on C9 just sort of drawing defensive lines.
And actually, Fudge didn't even elect to go for first strike, so he's going for Airy. This is a little bit more laning power. Ryoma did go first strike anyway, and it is still a scaling rune, to be fair. You can get a lot of gold out of it later on. The 10% damage amp is very powerful for your poke, at the later levels with, big ones and that sort of stuff. But generally, in my experience, you don't get a lot of gold out of this in range versus range matchup, especially Victor, who should be able to actually deny that proc most of the time. We'll see how Fudge is going to do in this 1v1.
Yeah, I've actually been a huge fan of the LPL Airy Victor when they play it so aggressively, even early on. I feel like they're playing into the, trying to get some of the takedowns and stuff to accelerate the scaling, but I definitely expect Fudge to play it super aggressively here because you have that extra trading power. There you go on display already, goes in for the Q, gets the Airy proc. Starts to get a little bit of a health lead right from the get-go. And again, we're going to have a big magnifying glass on him because it is such a big deal to go for the lane swap here for Cloud9.
That's a good tweet.
Well, a little bit of scrappiness here in the bottom side. 2v2 nice and early. Zen and Isles backing up a bit as Ryoma and Fudge keep having these auto attack trades at level 1. Fudge almost stepping out of the way of the phosphorus bomb there, but that keeps things a little bit more even for Ryoma's sake. Up here in top, we'll have to keep an eye on how well Darshan is able to stack up bonus health as things move forward. He does have that Soul Furnace up and running here from level 1, just making sure he's ready to get as much value out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And really just trying to kind of hang on in this match. You don't have to do anything too crazy. Sion is a strong early laner. You can obviously use the post level 6, the ultimate, to get back to lane for kind of a second TP as well. And I'm actually of the opinion that tanks are really strong in this current season. Some of the wave clear bonus that they actually gave on a lot of the tank mythic items have made them very powerful. And I think Sion is pretty bulletproof against this sort of a team comp. It's very hard for Xin and Camille to actually kill you until you get some real items under your belt.
Meanwhile, Blabber is very far ahead of Iconic in the jungle pathing at the moment. He's a camp ahead, has already routed down, and can go for the invade with his pushing bottom lane. Love these types of plays from Blabber. He remains efficient with his path, but also then tries to play off of his pushing lanes here. You want to be able to keep this Jinx and Lulu offensive, because you're playing into the possible kill lane of the Nautilus plus Aphelios. And so you want to get as much harassment out of your range advantage with your Jinx Lulu early on as you can. Keep pushing up, playing aggressively. He gets full vision coverage for Zen and Isles to keep on pushing in Stixxay and Chime, plus makes the fairly efficient route of full blue quadrant down to red side before doing it. Meanwhile, Iconic and Tizza back up on the top side, where Tony Top is trying to get the exact same kind of push there on the wave towards top side into Sion.
Yeah, and Fudge already, Ryoma started Longsword 3-pot, and he got through all 3 of those health potions very quickly. He used 2 dematerializer charges already and had to take an early base, and even with that. So Fudge going to be looking pretty good in this lane. As long as he can get it reset, he's going to get a much better buy and be sitting in a comfortable position in this 1v1.
Meanwhile, bottom side, Chime's going in with the dredge line, but as soon as the Chompers fall down, everybody disengages. The Jinx and Lulu are happy to just keep on farming up as this Nautilus tries to engage on him. Ryoma stepping forward here, trying to get plenty of damage down onto Fudge, who again can just back away. The farm here will be dead even if Fudge can pick up all 3 of these, so he's doing just fine.
And I think Iconic needs to have eyes for his early first play, either, maybe around mid lane, around Fudge. If Fudge is going to try and play super aggressively into Ryoma, there could be an opening there as long as you can keep some vision coverage on your side. Maybe you get a Xin Zhao play in, but a lot on trying to crack that bottom lane mainly. So Summoner Spell tracking towards that bottom lane. If you can play off of the Nautilus CC, off of one of those hooks to get an early kill and start looking towards your dragons, should be a big area for the Xin to look at. Blabber, that's why we highlighted so much. His effort in his early path coordinated towards the bottom lane to get them vision for the early stages to kind of make it a little bit smoother.
Yep, Fudge going to be able to get his base off. He uses the TP as well. Getting that first base for your Lost Chapter is just so nice on a control mage mid. Doesn't have to go for pieces or anything like that.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you're forced back and just have to grab Dark Seal, Doran's Ring, those type of things. Anytime you can have this base, you're going to be feeling really good about your position in this lane going forward.
Both junglers in the bottom side river about to find one another here. Blabber has to retreat. Xin usually wins those 1v1s straight up, and he has Chime right behind him here too. Supports roaming around here a little bit. You can see Isles just now coming back out of the Cloud9 base. as Chime is already involved here for Golden Guardians.
And I love this because this is one of the highest value areas on the map, where the screen is looking right now. This river coverage, the pathway between mid and bottom. Because this is where your support has so much influence, when jungle and support are fighting over this vision coverage for that area, the rewards are tremendous. And so some of those sneaky wards you saw up towards the Raptor pit provide you a lot of value. Cloud9 say, we're not backing down from that fight though. Even with the Golden Guardians moving in first, they also have that super high value on that area of the map to allow for a lot of these roams between bottom lane up towards mid lane. When you've got stuff like a Victor that can fall prey to early ganks, it definitely means a lot. It means even more for Golden Guardians since they've got the Nautilus, and this is one of the advantages that you have, or one of the answers that you have to some of these very popular Enchanter lanes. When you opt for the tank side, yeah, your lane is not going to be pushing as much from bottom side, and it's harder in the straight up 2v2 sometimes if you can't get your kill threat, but your roams can be more impactful when you're trying to punish, you know, mid laners that will have to blow flashes and stuff. And so that vision coverage over this kind of highway between mid and bottom is paramount.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, C9 has 4 wards in that river covering any move that
you got to pay the toll if you want to come gank.
Exactly. You must be ready to move past those obstacles. Blabber now level 6. Cataclysm is ready to go. Ryoma's going to have that Chaos Storm dropped on top of his head, gives him the happy Teemo. He's cool with it, but Fudge does maintain advantage here in this mid lane. Ryoma not with enough health to really stick around much more.
This has become such a popular move. With Victor gaining popularity both in mid and in bottom lane, I can't count the number of times I just see Victors on cooldown, just sparing their ultimate. You E-ultimate somebody in lane, and you get a huge damage chunk.
Yep.
They have to back off.
And it
Plus
clears
that
the
pushes
wave.
the wave. So it's just this giant momentum play where you gain so much tempo for yourself, pushing the wave plus chunking them out. It's one of the reasons why it gains so much popularity. You know, it also has the added benefit if you went the first strike that oftentimes you're also outranging them when you're doing it, so you get a big health chunk. In this case, he went for the area, so you get the bigger punch and better early trading that we've seen. But it's a very popular move, and trying to cycle that cooldown for your ultimate, which is decently low for Victor, doesn't have a huge opportunity cost.
Darshan ready and waiting here in the tri-brush. Gets a lot of Tony Top's HP. Waits until the shield wears off to drop the ulti. But Darshan is without much more mana to work with, so Tony's not actually in danger of dying. But Darshan gets the better of him there.
Never mind. We've got some action.
We got some action ready to go.
Important. Iconic kind of threatens for a possible dive, and then they go for the late hook there into the tower, but they just had the tower targeting on 6A for a second, so as Chime goes in, hits the turret, doesn't draw tower aggro. There's no damage dealt there for Lulu, so no harm, no foul. I was going to say, I wanted to echo something that Raz was talking about on the analyst desk for Darshan, since he is in for Cloud9 here. This guy, known him for 10 years playing professional League of Legends, and something that's kept him in for the long run has been his focus on constantly continuing to improve and learn about the game. He spends so much time. Never mind.
Ryoma goes in. Package delivery forces the flash out of Fudge, but Blabber's ready to follow up. Ryoma now in danger, stuck in a Cataclysm. The dunk bucket prevails. Blabber's gonna fall, so it's 1 for 1. Fudge trying to get further away as Iconic goes further in. Gravity well placed on top of his own feet means Fudge gets the flash. And oh, we got a bloody one here in mid.
Yeah, very even, but it's going to go slightly C9 favored as Fudge stays alive and will be able to push this out. Should be able to force out Ryoma's TP. That was really close on both sides, though. Fudge just barely getting away and almost actually taking Iconic down at the end.
Yeah, I mean, if you do get trades 1 for 1 in mid lane, as we kind of talked about before, even a slight extra benefit for Victor there towards the Hex score, but the junglers are the ones who win the mid lane trades, coming away with both of the kills. Ryoma does touch him there just with the tip, with the package in. Then Blabber knows he can follow, has the red buff smite on him, so starts to try and walk away, see if he can make it out with possibly getting the health advantage and extra damage there for Fudge to be able to win the last 1v1, but does at least get the flash out of Iconic because he was very scared about the cooldowns coming back up from Fudge with maybe EQ and then trying to walk you down. So does also get the flash out of Xin, which makes Xin much more liable here to repeat plays, especially if you're continuing to fight over this river vision and continuing to control it.
So Crown is definitely the more kind of common option, at least in solo queue for Victor, but Luden's going to be higher damage. There's a lot of squishy members over on that other side. You know, if you just hit one laser to the back line on someone like Ryoma or Stixay, you get the Luden's proc, you get the Airy proc. It can be pretty difficult to deal with until you get some more sustain on these marksman champs.
Also, against Corki, for me, I dropped Shatter Queen value by like 40% because Rockets are so easy to poke it off, and there are a lot of teams where Shattered Queen is just, oh, never mind. We've got Darshan in a 2v1. Good knock-up.
Okay, they immediately walk in. They wait until he's already used ult to use the Hextech ultimatum and lock him down, but he's just too tanky.
I think it was really good foresight by Darshan. You know, he knows he's not going to get his ultimate away, so he ults into them just for a little knock-up there, knowing that he would get trapped inside, uses that time to walk his way out, and you're absorbing so much pressure there. He's a tank on top side. He's winning in CS. He's absorbing jungle ganks, so while the rest of the team gets an objective here, he's doing so much work just in a very unflashy way for a role that is more isolated than ever before.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where when you're playing double physical damage topside and they have some early HP, they have the Bramble, it becomes incredibly difficult to ever really threaten Darshan. So, you know, until Tony Top, you know, has his mythic completed, starts to get some real threat on that empowered Q. You know, with the true damage, it's not really worth going up there. It's just trying to get Tony farming and see what we can get done later on.
Just feels like banging your head into the wall that is Sion, but Blabber's up here now. He's ready to go, but a poor timing on Cataclysm.
Yeah, gonna be some very slight cooldowns used there. Jarvan not gonna have that same threat maybe towards one of these flashless members that he would have had if he still had the ultimate up. It is a little bit of a drop in the bucket. They know after that reset, Xin Zhao back onto the other side of the map, so he's still going to focus on getting the Rift Herald objective while bottom side does pay. Stixay happy to knock off turrets by hand, earning himself that gold this way, and bringing Iconic down for good measure to once again flirt and kind of threaten with that dive, but when Isles has the ultimate here for Lulu, plus they still have double summoner spells on Sven, it is pretty risky unless you're bringing like package Corki down to complement your dive. So again, it's definitely a high risk sort of situation for Golden Guardians, and with Stixay taking some tower shots, back right off with just the Krug steal.
Yeah, and I mean, if they can't kill the tower prior, Tony Top has actually held onto his TP, and that's going to unleash, you know, in 35 seconds here. So there is the opportunity to try to look for a repeat play down on that bottom side. But for now, just dropping that Herald, trying to get the charge off before the plates do fall, getting a little bit of gold in their pockets. But you got to say, Golden Guardians doing pretty well here. Obviously, there are a lot of subs in for the Cloud9 side also, but they do have their intended mid, they do have their intended jungle, and as a result, you would kind of favor them.
And I have seen these subs somewhere before, Azale, so it's not like they've got some randos in here, you know.
Up-and-comer Sven.
Sven, wow, getting some sub time in on Cloud9.
Yep.
Crazy lock-in stuff from C9. Meanwhile, Darshan, obviously one of the longest standing veterans himself.
But you already said you've known him for 10 years. Yeah.
So,
First time since 2019 spring that he's played in the LCS, though, so it's been a while for him.
Yeah, it's been a little while. So, you know, some very familiar subs on the
sir.
side of Cloud9. Just a little bit on the Rift Herald activation 2 for Blabber. I do always, really like, you know, trying to get it off as quick as possible for the gold before 14 minutes so you get your turret plate money. The only thing I will caution against, a lot of people can make the mistake of not looking at your own minion wave to see your opponent minion wave. If you do that early Rift Herald when you're trying to get it in when a top laner is recalled just to cash in on plates, and you don't time with the minion wave and your Rift Herald goes for the minion wave,
Aggroes them and they
then
kill it.
she stays there on the way the minion wave, and then your jungler or somebody
Shelly's
comes along,
easily distracted.
just kills it. Yeah, so that's the one thing you will say. Preface that with Blabber paid very good attention watching your own minion wave. You know where the opponent minion wave is, so just to avoid that pitfall that you know, can deny you that big cash in of turret plates. Meanwhile, Cloud9 happily scaling on bottom side. As you said though, Azale, Golden Guardians pretty happy with the situation, especially from the early stages. You've got your Corki stacking up the Muramana. When that thing transforms into Muramana, you feel like a new man.
Absolutely. Both comps have really good scaling, to be clear. I mean, Aphelios and Corki are no slouches. I do think C9 has a much better 5v5, But Golden Guardians is going to have the advantage in a 4-1 type situation, right? Camille can scale up to that point where you can be winning that 1v1 against Sion. But to be honest, it takes a couple items generally to really be threatening Sion. And then you're trying to win through sides, you're trying to win through finding picks, using the Camille ultimate to try to create that with the Xin, pressure towers, really split the map. Because if you just walk at each other 5v5 and Sion is the person you're focusing down first, you are almost always going to lose that as Golden Guardians.
Yeah, probably the scariest thing for me for Golden Guardians perspective is that it is very easy for Cloud9 to force plays because you have Jarvan and Sion that can force from very long ranges with those ultimates. You have to be extremely careful about your setup for objectives. And with Blabber and Isles here working seamlessly together to keep this river clear and under their control, they have allowed themselves so much more information for a lot of these plays. Let's see about the triple person blast cone though, as they call off that play.
I like the fact that they were looking for it now, though, because the Drake is about to spawn. 5 seconds left. Of course, bit unfortunate for the Golden Guardians that Cloud9 was there, ready to go to respond right after. As the Drake spawns, it will be C9 picking that one up. Remember, this has been a 100% objectives game for the side of Cloud9 so far. 2 Drakes, 1 Rift Herald, no turrets taken yet by either team. Ooh. Tony Top continuing to pressure up top, and here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, quite a, what is the word? A controversial new addition to the game here in the Kim-Tech Rift. One of the biggest complaints I see levied against this online, of course, is how it favors the team that is ahead due to how it interacts with vision and allows you to control the map that much more effectively.
Exactly. It's very difficult to actually defend your own quadrants. You lose some of these side brushes that you used to be able to kind of just hold a pink in and try to hold as a defensive area. It makes it very easy for the winning team to move into that section, to take away camps, and you don't really have the forewarning of that. Also, to make matters worse, on red side, that kind of area where the fog is where you wanted to control to be able to actually check if the blue team is doing Barret. Right. You lose access to that as well. And the Soul is really tough to team fight into. That Sion passive, essentially, being able to use spells on top of that, making it even more powerful for the entire team.
Old Oracle.
5v5 is just not really an option if they get it.
I will add that the designers tried to add some sort of answer in these extra little Scryer's blooms that pop up with it now. So we're gonna look at that as some data from pro play here in this game. And on top of it, it's one of the most painful dragons to see pop up as the Soul for a tank team. So Darshan is going to be a little bit less happy to see this one because it does give you the extra damage versus higher health targets. And Darshan is always going to be the highest health target in this game. So a little bit more, effectiveness for Golden Guardians, a little bit of hope for them in trying to fight the tank fight.
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is it's basically giving you cut down, right? And same thing with the fog. You get damage against people that have more HP than you, so it works very similarly to that rune, and it can be pretty effective if you do get a fight like Camille against Sion in that area.
Blabber's going in as Iconic is forced to flash away from the Cataclysm, so that means he'll at least get away from it, but Cloud9 picking up a free flash there just in exchange for the Jarvan ulti. Chime now in the river. We'll see if they end up seeing much of him. Nope, he'll be able to get away in time as Stixxay applies pressure onto the mid lane tier 1 turret. Normally for maximum damage, Aphelios gets as close as possible to the turret, but he knows Cloud9 is on the way. He does not want to extend any further than he would have to. That turret remains standing 19 minutes into the game. No turrets taken, either team.
It's been a very slow and steady game, but Cloud9 does have the advantage through those dragons, and it's going to be Golden Guardians that are going to force the answer. Cloud9 is going to be happy to 5v5, and I expect Arshan to be there for this next dragon, for Cloud9 to set up their positioning. And if Golden Guardians isn't first there, it's so incredibly difficult to actually enter the river through Chompers, through Gravity Field, through Victor Lasers, through this Sion. So they're going to have to find a different way in.
Yeah, and plus, when you're looking across at the Golden Guardians with their gold advantage, that advantage has to manifest in items in inventory when you have that big fight, or else it actually just means nothing for them. So unless the breakpoints really come to fruition before this big fight, the setup and the composition here for Cloud9 do look pretty advantageous. Golden Guardians, though, you will say, with that gold. We'll see if it does, mean the difference between a 2-item power spike versus just a 1. Can mean a very big difference, especially, for something like the Camille or like the Corki here. Stixxay has at least been able to get Last Whisper for you, Felios, which is a good little component item too. So even though it's not a full 2nd item power spike, does go some distance as far as one of the big questions for them is how are they going to get around the better front line of Cloud9. With if they can get a Chemtech Dragon, if they can, position in the fog, and he's also got Last Whisper, those are the sorts of things that you have to try and add up to
They're gonna have both towers. That's actually pretty big for their soul laners. I mean, Ryoma for sure should have his Ludens complete now whenever he wants to actually base.
Yep.
I'm not sure how much gold Tony Top was sitting on, but he gets that tower gold as well. So yeah, both these guys are going to be on 2 items for that next dragon fight, which is really big for Golden Guardians and leads me to believe that they may want to contest it.
Yeah, we're talking about the advantages for Cloud9 in terms of those first 2 Drakes, but a 3,000 gold lead 21 minutes into the
Just
game
got 2
is
towers.
very, very formidable here for the side of Golden Guardians. I'm not feeling bad about fighting for this 3rd Drake if I'm them.
And it does, again, mean the item completions. There are the 2-item power spikes I'm talking about. The upgrade to Lord Doms for Stixxay. The completion of the Ludens for Ryoma. Trying to poke them out before the objective.
They're looking here. Chime gets away. Ryoma still getting whatever poke he can find.
Does have
package ready to go. A huge factor in how this fight could end up playing out is the usage and placement of that package. Ryoma takes a little bit more poke there from the Jinx Zap. Cloud9 all grouped up in this bottom side river with Golden Guardians having priority over the mid lane. Cloud9 may just try to rush towards the Drake if Golden Guardians commit to the tier 1 turret, and it looks like that's going to be the story we're telling. Cloud9 heading over to that first Chemtech Drake. As
Here
Golden
we go,
Guardians
baby!
are ready to rock.
Let's light it up!
Tony Top on the flank.
Chime's leading the way. Tony's coming around from the left. Chime losing half HP. Ryoma having to fall back here. Gets hit by the not fully empowered Q as Iconic goes in, and he's ready to find something onto Fudge. Gets back away now as the dredge line goes through, and Chime's going to be the first to die. Traded away for Fudge. Ryoma over the wall looking for the damage here with the Rockets. Tony Top not grabbing anything. Polymorph spells his demise, as it will be traded back at least once. Sven is down. Both carries on the Cloud9 side are out of the picture. Ryoma and Stixxay are alive, but they are the only 2, and Cloud9 will win that fight and earn Drake number 3.
And they don't have the tools yet to kill Darshan. The bodyguard is going to be able to ward off everybody from poking around the dragon. So Cloud9 will claim number 3 here. They will deny the Chemtech bonus to Golden Guardians, which would help with that Darshan problem that they have. And this is one of the things we are kind of discussing as far as the Corki builds. Let's go over the fight one more time, though, because Fudge is going to annihilate the Nautilus as he comes in. He does have the flash early on, but take a look at this. Gets hooked in, immediately blows him up. There goes the poke landing, though, from Corki as Ryoma gets the high ground and moves up. And with the Ludens build, does have more threat with the Rockets coming through, but it's already gotten chunked out, so they can't follow through with the river fight. And then it's just your frontliners there deep in with the rest of the Cloud9 team. So C9 happy to take the extra kill, happy to take that dragon.
The rocket was really big on Sven, though. That one rocket over the wall did about 40% of his HP, allowed them to actually finish him off, and they got the flash off of Fudge. They got the flash off of Sven. So these carries don't have it available. If they're able to find some sort of an engage, they have flashes on Tony Top, on Chime, on Iconic. They can look for place.
So the thing in this damage graph that I'm looking at, I mean, your eyes can be immediately drawn towards Corki for having 1,000 damage higher than anybody else, but I'm looking at Tony, 462. He did less than Lulu, barely more than Nautilus. The Camille was completely contained in that fight as a shark, God bless it. I was going to go for Stark or Sharp. I was like, just don't mess it up. And sure enough, we got Shark. Anyway,
He's swimming underwater.
yeah,
Here
as a
he
shark
comes.
contrast to Darshan's performance soaking all that damage, the difference in top lane impact there in that fight.
It's looking like a shark on land.
Yeah,
Just flopping around
that's not
over
where they're
there.
supposed to be, Isaac. They belong in the
Get back
ocean.
in the water, Tony.
Yeah, get him back in the river. Set that poor shark free. But it is still a game that is now getting very scary, gentlemen, for the side of Golden Guardians, because that Chemtech Soul is one Drake away for the rest of the game. From the side of Cloud9, 3 minutes until that spawns, 25 minutes into the game now, as Tony Top will continue pressuring this bottom side. Darshan's happy to just stay in this side lane against him, farming up, continuing to stack HP to become scarier and scarier for the next team fight.
Yeah, one of the reasons why Tony had such low damage is because, you know, he's in this flanking position trying to find an angle, but the rest of Golden Guardians don't have the spearhead to start the fight out.
Yeah.
That's why I was pointing out, Chime is the only other, you know, like super tanky one. Iconic tries to rely on his ultimate, but Fudge, even though he gets hooked in, 2 shots Chime as he's coming in. And so then there's no kind of other point of pressure for the team fight really to hold stability for Golden Guardians. That's why, you know, Tony has a hard time getting in, and then you're kind of left out to dry as Iconic. You're a Xin without a flash, and you're in the middle just as your ultimate expires, and you start to get burned down. So that's the advantages that Cloud9 have when they set up their team comp like this with 2 very robust frontline members for their fight, and why they felt so confident in playing the early stages the way that they did, now setting up for a possible soul point.
Yeah, and I think some credit as well to Darshan. You know, he did a good job actually marking Tony. You know, if Darshan is actually just full on frontlining in the river, that he can maybe find that flank and just jump onto a carry. But Darshan was always placing himself in between the Camille and his carries. You have to run past the Scion, then you get polymorphed and Jinx is killing you. It's a difficult position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, and again, with Ryoma, since he has gone with the poke build with the Ludens there, he's constantly trying to weave his rockets around this fat body Scion.
Yep.
Everybody's trying to avoid dealing with Scion as a problem. You know, that's a problem for tomorrow. Me, I'm not dealing with that today.
Tomorrow you's going to be upset with today you come tomorrow.
It definitely is.
That's a 6-item Aphelios problem. We'll deal with
Yeah,
it
okay,
later.
he'll deal with it later. Well, tomorrow's coming here in about 71 seconds or so, because that's when our 4th Drake of the game spawns, and that's what the Golden Guardians absolutely must stop. Darshan, nearly 4,000 HP here on the Scion. Blabber goes in. Stixay's not able to get away. He is trapped and exploded inside the Cataclysm. Chime wants to get out, but the gravity well locks him down. Cloud9 have found 2 kills and a mid lane turret for free.
Blabber is doing his job on Jarvan so extremely well for Cloud9. Another good use. Flash engage here, ultimate through. Guess what? Your Aphelios, Stixay there, annihilated. Has the summoner spells available. I believe the flash sliver was still on cooldown, so had the heal, didn't quite have the flash yet. All attributed to good flash timing on the side of Cloud9 for Blabber forcing that engage and getting that good timing to allow them objective afterwards. And once you don't have that Aphelios, you know, threat, then there really is no answer to the Scion problem. And Cloud9 claim another objective. Good force from them. 14 seconds left on that dragon.
And even though Aphelios is respawning, he won't be able to get there in time, you would think, as Iconic had to use his ulti already. There's no team fight power on the Zen. Ryoma already had to use the package. Golden Guardians' resources have already been taxed. The Drake is alive, and Cloud9 has the position. Tony Top is the only one here immediately. Chime will be the second man to enter into the river. Tony Top getting away for now as Darshan zones away 3. Stixay is going to be kept out of the fight by the Chompers, but he steps forward and finds the ulti onto 2. Drake going to be taken low, as now Darshan's trying to stand and fight. Iconic's going to be killed off immediately. Blabber's going to be taken low. Blabber is down. Cloud9 looking to protect the Drake and secure the fight. A TP's coming in as Ryoma tries to run away and kite. Now you got Tony Top ready to go right back in now as Fudge manages to pick up the Drake. Tony Top's running around trying to find the kills. Here's Zombies Van! Shutdown goes over, and it does not matter. 11-7 with an ace plus soul for Cloud9.
And the only one that doesn't die is the one that's got an extra zombie passive.
Triple zombie Scion!
Darshan doesn't have to use his Zion Spartan zombie or his extra Scion zombie. He's the last one standing. They get the soul. That was the main goal. And look at this. You're going to talk about Fudge.
Look at this big one, though.
Blasting Tony out of the fight.
Look at Ryoma. He gets this rocket here coming up on his Ven. Valkyrie's around. Look at that! That was like 2,000 damage at least between Isles and Sven there. But then the problem is, he didn't actually have the Valkyrie. The cooldown is fairly long. We get the reset here from Sven, and Sven is piling through. Tony Top TP is back. Look at the HP on that dragon down to 200. Tony could have taken it potentially. And you won round 1 against Sven, but you didn't win round 2.
I love it too, Sven. trying to kite away from the Corki, even if it's into the Camille space.
Yup.
Like, just get me away from these rockets. I mean, that is why people, this build got so popular.
Yeah.
Shout out to your boy MidBeast with the YouTube videos getting this Corki build popping, because people want those late game. If you get your rocket onto the backline, onto the Corki, that's where the big value is. But it's really, can you make it count?
We already got Blabber going in, having to pop the stopwatch, keeping himself alive. Fudge tanking up here in the front now as he's wild growth to try to stay in there, but the zombie form is
Three-man
coming out.
knock-up.
Darshan's ready to join in as Chime has been removed. Stixay with the flash over the wall, Iconic with the flash over the wall, double kill back over to Sven. Darshan continues the chase, Stixay continues to run. He'll get cut down as Darshan just keeps going. Blabber's low, but he ain't out of the picture just yet. 3 for 1 C9.
All right, you always just gotta have to keep your eyes on the Rockets in this game. That's what's gonna keep it exciting, because with Chemtech Soul, Cloud9 have this overwhelming team fight advantage, and the hope for Golden Guardians.
Corki gets yeeted up into the air. Ryoma's got 200 HP. Darshan is still moving, baby. Slam him over the head with the hammer.
Darshan with the shutdown, 5-0-5, one of the longest standing LCS players, top 10 in games played all time. Has been around since the very beginning, and he's still got it.
I love it, too, how he has kept his focus on the learning process of the game. We were going to try and talk about earlier is, how much work he has put in to stay this long. It takes so much effort to remain relevant. Here's another look at how it started out, though. Blabber's going to have even more confidence in going forward in a lot of these, that he does have the stopwatch on top of having the Chemtech Soul, so he goes so deep, goes in on his 6A to try and get some of the summoner spells out, and Darshan just gets to run rampant. Again, if you're leaving that Scion as a problem for tomorrow, guess what? Tomorrow just come and hit you in the face inside the fog of the Chemtech Soul as well, and he gets to run through the entire map. Choo-choo!
He's so far ahead of the rest of the team, but it don't matter. The man's got 5,000 HP. They just can't kill him. Darshan continues leading the charge here. Ryoma losing 2/3 HP, having to Valk away to safety. Cloud9 continuing their push here in bottom side. Everybody's ready to go. Tier 2 turrets just about gone. Blabber putting the pressure onto Chime. Chime gets away just barely. Ryoma doing the same. Cloud9's got better health bars, better positioning. They got the wave coming up from behind. They're looking for the inhibitor turrets.
He's a tank of the tower. Darshan doesn't need to wait for the team. He is the team. He's got so much health.
The tower can't even deal with his shield. It couldn't even break it. And it looks like with that presence, C9 easily able to clean up this objective. Guess what? They still have a minute and a half left on this Baron buff. 3 extra waves to continue to push with Blabber fishing around for another engage.
Blabber's very low now. However, they do have to be mindful of this. Backing away now on that one, allowing Blabber to go back, reset, heal up a little bit. Elder Drake spawning in about a minute and a half. Still a minute and 15 seconds remaining on the Baron buff for the side of Cloud9. So that will almost transition perfectly into the Elder spawn.
Yeah, it's just so difficult for Golden Guardians because, again, one of their surprise ways out of these fights is, does Ryoma get some big rockets and burst damage onto the backline and pop backline? But guess what? That doesn't even matter, because then you would have to kite them afterwards, because the backline will just get back up even if you get those sniper rockets or you get that lucky kill onto some of the backline carries there for Cloud9, and there's no way you're going through Darshan. Stixay's going to try his best, but even the Aphelios with the armor penetration is still going to have a hard time.
Here we go. Cloud9 looking for even more. Stixay has to get the hell out of town. He's got 200 HP remaining. Sven's being pressured by Iconic, but Iconic immediately has to retreat. Cloud9, 5-man strong, continue their push. There comes your combo with the flash from Blabber, knocking him up and keeping this going forward. Golden Guardians, there's just nothing left in the tank. Speaking of tanks, Darshan loves these turret shots so much, I think he just took about 20 of them, and he's still got 2,000 HP left. They've got Fudge back in the fight now, and Cloud9's looking to wrap this one up.
They certainly are. Nexus turrets don't stand a chance, Flowers.
And there they go. Number 1, it's down. Tony Top goes in. He's trying to find the damage on Sven. Hextech ultimatum at least gets him. Plenty of shields coming out from Lulu. Yes, the Jinx dies, but no, she's not dead for real. Zombie form is ready to go. Throws out a little bit of damage, but won't get much. GG, well played. 34 minutes in, it's Cloud9 taking the win.
Smooth sailing there for Cloud9. Golden Guardians had a pretty solid early game, but Cloud9 always had Dragon control, played towards the 5v5 win condition, and Golden Guardians could never actually divert them from that. They were never able to cause any havoc in the side lanes, to draw pressure away from that. And really, you just ended up having this Camille that is just having to 5v5 constantly against an unkillable Scion.
That's why I mentioned you're not really worried for Cloud9, even though they're facing thousands of gold deficit, because they have 2 best-in-class frontline tank AD carries, 2 best-in-class carry backliners in Victor and Jinx, and 1 best-in-class enchanter support to buff them up. So the team fight is always there. And when you have that comfort of the Dragon lead, your game plan is very clear, and they stuck to it. So I think a well set up game plan from Cloud9, and a good job sticking to it in game as well. As we mentioned, the subs that they used are veterans to the utmost level, whereas Golden Guardians, much more raw subs that they had to sub in.
It looked like there might have been a chance for Golden Guardians to mount some sort of a greater fight there at that third Drake fight when they did just get the 2 towers, when they did get the item spikes. It didn't go their way, and after that, it just felt like Cloud9 choked the life out of them. We're going to be breaking down that game with the State Farm analyst desk now. Let's see what they got.
Thank you so much, Flowers. And thank you for giving us that wonderful imagery. Cloud9 choking out their opponents to achieve victory here over the Golden Guardians. Very different, though, from game 1 of the day, right? We had a quick, very dominant game, and while I think there was still a level of dominance displayed here by Cloud9, not quite the same as what we saw in the first game of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they took it slow. They understood their overall team fight objective, and I think they just wanted to come playing it much safer, right? They could definitely take risks, and I felt like they just understood what their win con was and just played towards it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if they're playing towards this draft, right, with the that's gonna be a Scion, not an Urgot. But
I was gonna say, I was like, wait, I was like, how did I watch the entire game and not see the Urgot?
I think the big thing here is, right, like Jinx Lulu, insanely powerful in the bot lane 2v2. Also, obviously, Lulu right now is insanely powerful, just generally, as a support. You saw what the late game Scion did, where, Golden Guardians were just not able to kill it. And then we talked about the Victor Corki matchup.
Get used to it.
Pretty non-interactive.
Yeah, my last segment, Mark promised.
Come in there, but yeah, it's if you watched LPL, it's pretty much all you see. It's not great.
It's not great. And this does feel, even though he's not here, like an LS fingerprint draft in some ways.
Yeah.
Like no sinners on his team comp really, other than the J4, you could argue. And so even though Max Waldo is the one doing the drafting right now, I feel like this is still kind of that dream that a lot of people are waiting to see how hard Cloud9 will pursue. Because it's scaling in all 3 lanes with the J4 acting like a little bit like a bridge champion.
If the Cloud9 players sin, do they have to repent at the Church of LS or something like
so.
that? Is there a confessional at the end of the day?
They can wait until February.
It's a tithe. You just have to give a little of your salary.
Oh, that's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
My biggest difficulty with this one is that I don't even necessarily think that they outscale. They have Camille that later on in the game will be constantly forcing threats on side lane, so they're going to have to deal with them theoretically, once the game gets to that point. In the game, of course, was threatening flank, but my main point based off this draft is the range. Range of Corki was huge. There's really not much you could do to deal with that other than maybe forcing the engage with Scion and J4. And then, green, white gun with Aphelios can also just work really well in your favor. So taking it from a range is one aspect, playing through side lanes is another. So I don't think it was a bad draft from Golden Guardians from a scaling perspective.
I definitely agree with you on that front. I think the one thing that jumps out to me, though, is kind of the diversity of options that Cloud9's composition affords them, particularly when it comes to those team fights, right?
Yeah.
You've got that very solid front line and engage options between Scion and Jarvan, with great follow-up, plenty of CC. You heard the casters talking about the difficulty of approaching Cloud9, say, in a choke like River, where you've got chompers coming down, you've got the gravity field, all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so here we see Tony Top prepping for the flank. This actually does not work out in their favor. I know, Raz, you want us to talk about Chime's entry. It did also look like Iconic and Tony weren't necessarily on the same page. And once this fight happened, that was the game opener.
Yeah, Raz, I liked this setup out of Golden Guardians. The positioning at least looked relatively clean, but the fight didn't go their way.
Exactly. They had a 2 to 3K gold lead. They were in a position where, of course, the flank coming in from Camille. I think Fudge did an amazing job putting down his W to just make it so Xin Zhao couldn't have a clean entry to the fight. And so, understandably, take a little more time, right? You don't have to fully commit then. They still have to, like, play, dance a little bit for the dragon. Problem is, Chime does go in, so he gets bursted immediately. Your AD carry gets bursted a little bit. I mean, the Corki gets bursted a little bit as well before the fight even starts. So actually, Camille's like, I never find an opening.
Right.
Couldn't even use the ultimate at all in that fight.
And we saw that difficulty, right, of getting through some of those tools. Xin Zhao getting stuck on the gravity field. It felt like that was when they wanted to hit that go button, have the Camille go in as well, but they overthought it, and ultimately it didn't come through. While it was a gold lead for Golden Guardians, it was a Drake lead for Cloud9, and it did end up netting them the soul as well.
And we finally get to see our first variation on the Rift. We got the Chemtech Drake Soul with the Rift. Everyone's talking about the camouflage point, but funnily enough, the thing that stood out more in this game, I think, was actually the zombie forms that we saw crop up here. And what ended up being a little bit of a close fight, the fact that Sven can get back up after getting killed in this when Tony Top finishes TPing in, like, you get to see the power of some of this. The Drake's at 200, could have stolen it away, but now Sven, with that, able to get the reset when he dies here, finishes off Tony Top. They're able to finish off Ryoma as well. It was just cool to see, you know, the new Rift and some of the changes from Season 12 coming in.
Yeah, and some of the games I've been seeing in Challenger, when you see, you know, Chemtech Soul starts to play a really big factor in these team fights. The longer the team fights go, if a tank or an initiator dies initially, you're just zoning someone out, especially if we're fighting for Elder, then you're just playing for space if you're dead.
Yeah.
It's really strong in team fights like these.
I am only mad that the Scion didn't die.
True.
So that we
About
could
the
have
triple
seen
zombie.
the double zombie.
You know what was interesting? Watching the game end, I was like, I think this might be the best soul for inting into the Nexus turret to get the last kill. Or, you know, like the fountain laser.
Oh, you're only thinking about
Right, 'cause
going
you
into
can
the
die
fountain for the
and
laser.
get back
still get
up,
it.
so-
I thought you were going to say it's the most effective Drake for ending a game into opposition. Like, I
you
don't...
can die.
Yeah, because I can die and I can still hit the Nexus.
No,
right?
I'm thinking
like,
about getting that
you know,
last
like-
kill. You know, everyone lines up and they
my
die.
God.
Mark's
You're
going right
you're
past the
one
Nexus.
kill away from a penta, and you just need to kill the guy in the fountain.
Yeah.
There
You're
it
like,
is.
okay, I got my zombie form.
It is interesting to see immediately how some of these Drakes can affect the map as a whole. But I also think there's plenty of room, right, for the teams to still iterate on how to use them effectively. We were already kind of even talking about, you know, the effectiveness of the buff as a cut down mechanic, right? And you're going to see differences depending on compositions and the actual feasibility of using that, as well as, you know, location of the map.
Well, in theory, that was actually a great game for Chemtech Soul for Golden Guardians.
If they had managed to get it.
Because there were so many tanks on the other team.
That's actually, I think so much we focus on the team that has the lead coming into, going up against a team that doesn't versus Chemfog. To be fair, in the first Dragon fight, even though Golden Guardians had a goal lead, they didn't have the positioning advantage, right?
Right.
They had to fight for positioning after taking mid turret, but because Camille used Chemfog, she found an angle. So, like, that's an example of it being used for the team that's playing defense or behind positionally.
All right, I got a question for you guys.
What's up?
One game in, one game sample size. Fudge, mid lane. I know it's Victor Corki, but if that's what we're gonna get the whole split, then then we may as well evaluate his performance here today. What's the consensus?
I like it.
Should he have taken the turrets sooner? There was a conversation. It was like, hello, this mid lane turret is still up at a point
27
where
minutes.
the first game had ended before the mid lane turret in this game died.
It's a little early. I'll just say it was nice to see him play like a mid lane control mage because that's what I just wanted to see what he was going to do. And so, yeah, he played Victor.
I thought he played team fights really well. So, like,
Yeah.
in terms of just straight team fighting, he held on to his W, like I said earlier on, until Xin Zhao engaged. I thought he was very cool, calm, and collected in those moments.
Because I think when I first hear about the roster move, right? One of my major concerns is the style of champion and play that he had in the top lane versus what you would expect out of mid laner, particularly in a control meta like this, where you're going to play things like Victor and Corki. He's not the Malphite. He cannot just go in. He cannot Lee Sin kick the hell out of somebody. So totally different set of tools that he's working with, but it sounds like relatively okay with the way he showed up.
His placement in teamfights was really, really good. I think the lane was pretty non-interactive, not only because it was Victor Corki, but also, like, one of the things we talked about with the mid-jungle matchup that was kind of interesting to see here is that we didn't have a ton of interaction there, right? Like, it wasn't like what we saw from C9 before, where there might be some miscommunications about when they're going topside. That's completely eradicated. So
All right.
that was also interesting.
Well, one day in, I'm buying the mid lane Fudge stock. Tell you
Okay.
that much. Tell you
There
that
you go.
much. And let's go ahead and hear from the man himself who's standing by with Latigris in our Verizon postgame interview.
And bot for the C9 mid laner in Fudge. I am so happy to be joined by the one and only in our Verizon post-game interview. Fudge, I gotta ask you, I think you know this is coming. How has the swap been coming along since we heard from you in the roster announcement? You said that you're improving day by day.
Yeah, I think I've definitely improved a lot in terms of like my laning and majority of the matchups, because in scrims right now, basically I just first time matchups and I play pretty poorly, but eventually you start to get to understand most of the matchups that you're playing. I play a lot of like 1v1s, and I feel like now I'm getting used to a lot of these matchups. I'm getting used to mid lane. I still do feel like I'm probably better at top lane right now, but I do think eventually, especially once the year we get closer to like summer, I think I'll be pretty good at mid lane.
Speaking of those matchups a bit more, we saw two champions here in this match that many were expecting to see an interesting laning phase. And you just noted that it's going to take some time to continue to get to know these champions. But how does that interact with your addition to trying to understand the overall developing meta around the mid lane entirely?
Well, I think Victor Corki specifically is a matchup that's very non-interactive and sort of you're just going even until the mid-game team fights. I do think Corki with AP build can use rockets and outrange Victor, and if he lands enough, then can be more useful. But if we are better than them and dodge all the skills, I do think Victor can sort of come out on top. And it felt like that game specifically, when I was playing against Corki, it was sort of just Corki's trying to land ulti enough to the point where they can win a team fight, and it just wasn't enough. In terms of the mid lane meta overall, I think people are pretty unsophisticated, I guess, about like what they pick. I think there can be a lot more creativity, including from me. I think I can be playing a lot of different creative champions that sort of just take time to practice, which is why I'm playing Victor. But I think that people could be a lot more creative than they are right now, especially in mid lane.
I think that's one of the exciting things about the earlier part of the season, seeing how that evolution comes through within these early weeks. And C9 in total has went through quite an evolution, quite a facelift on both the supporting staff and the roster. I heard you talking about Church 9 and a lot of the content that you put out, having previous experience with people like LS and a lot of the staff having that same experience. What has it been like bringing in these new personas to have everybody on the same page on this team?
Well, so far, LS has still been in Korea with the rest of the Koreans, and they're basically just scrimming. So right now, it's basically the roster that we're playing with LCS right now, and Max Walder coaching, and LS and Summit and Malice, him playing mid lane, with Berserker and Winsome playing in Korea. And we're basically scrimming on different time zones. So we actually haven't really gotten together and like had a big team meeting between like the people with currently playing LCS and LS. I still talk to LS obviously, and he still talks to me and Max quite frequently, but he hasn't fully integrated yet into the team.
And Max has been offering a lot of great insight on that overall goal for individual improvement for overall team success. And we're just at the start of competition here today. But I want to call back to something that you said in that original roster announcement, that you assumed by lock-in you would be in the top mid laners in the league. Do you still stand behind that statement?
I think that by the end of I actually genuinely think that in the past week I've probably improved like from like bottom 3 mid laners to around middle of the pack. And I do think that with stage experience, you sort of gain insight, because usually when you play poorly on stage or you make mistakes on stage, you improve them a lot easier, just because there's a lot of like memory, I guess, from these games. It's a lot more important and more focused. So I do think by the end of lock-in, I will be like a top 3 mid laner, but I don't actually think right now that I am a top 3 mid laner. I do think that I still need some more time before I can call myself that.
If anyone knows anything about its improvement, it is our previous most improved player of 2021. You do have another match today, though. It's going to be against FlyQuest. Some changes on their roster as well. Thoughts on that upcoming game?
I think we'll shit on them.
All right, Fudge fans everywhere heard it first. Fudge, thank you for your honesty once again in this interview.
Thank you.
Plenty of LCS lock-in to come, everybody. On the other side of this break, we will see FlyQuest take to the game in the Rift for the first time against TSM. Don't miss it. See you there.